Let me personally invite you to the Women Getting Visible show and conference October 10th through 12th in Washington, D.C. We'll kick off Friday night with our VIP reception. Saturday, we'll have powerful keynote speakers, incredible workshops, and networking opportunities. After the Back to Me session, you'll walk away with confidence on Sunday. Join us and get your visibility journey energized.
There we are. Guess what, Gail? We're visible.
Hey, we're visible.
Oh, hello, everyone. I am Christina, the host of Women Getting Visible. Hello, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are just a month away from the Women Getting Visible show and conference. As you just saw, we'll be in Washington, D.C. the 10th, 11th, and 12th. And this week, just this past week, not even a full 7 days, I had the honor of meeting the author of Becoming Visible. And today I'm honored to have her here, as well as the Sunday keynote speaker. So let me welcome Gail. And Gail, just a quick look at your bio. You are an author, a speaker, an entrepreneur, a thought leader, and a coach, which is everything that we're sharing at the Women Getting Visible conference. So who better than you? So welcome.
Thank you, Christina. I'm so excited to be here with you. And I can't wait for the conference and feed into people and have feed back into me and that two-way street. I can't wait.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Well, Gail, going through your journey, which I have a sneak peek into, and we're going to talk about in just a moment, I'm going to ask you the first question that I love to ask my guests. On a scale of, I'll go all the way down to 0, of not being visible at all, to the number 10, where do you see yourself on your visibility journey?
Right now, an 8.5.
Great. And tell us why.
Well, I decided to become visible after 65 years of doing everything I could to be invisible. As a burn survivor, I felt like I was damaged goods and no one wanted to hear from me, see me, be connected to me, any of that. And so now I'm sharing my story. My book came out in April, and it's just been an amazing journey. And of course, it didn't happen overnight. Things have been progressing for a number of years. And it really started when an employer decided that I would benefit from a Dale Carnegie course. And from there, it just went through the roof.
And he's the one who wrote the How to Win Friends and Influence People, if I'm correct.
Yeah, absolutely. His story, his books, his teachings are all amazing. And I believe they're foundational for anyone trying at all to put their past behind and move forward, whether in business, in person, our personal lives, whatever. Yeah, Dale Carnegie's classes are just immeasurable.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit more. So this tragedy, this trauma happened to you when you were just a toddler, but it affected you your entire life. Tell us more about this.
Yeah. So my mom says just after I was born and through about year 2, I was a giggly, outgoing, girly girl who loved to meet new people, go new places. I was my mom's shadow. At 2.5 on a beautiful fall day, my mom took me to his house and they had a daughter tea. Well, it was 1956 and teas were not really the thing women drank. So it was really a coffee luncheon type thing. And so as they were putting the coffee and the cookies fresh out of the oven onto the table, I climbed up on the table and reached for one of those cookies, and I toppled a full, fresh 40-cup pot of coffee off the table and all over me. I caused 40% of my body to be severely burned, 3rd and 4th degree burns, and I have the scars, both physical and emotional, to this day.
Wow. I can't imagine. I mean, you're so little and this is happening to you without really realizing anything. I mean, you're just going on your life about being a kid. What made you feel different from that time that you kind of had to hide yourself? What was it that made you say, I need to be invisible?
Oh, well, as I said, I felt like I was damaged goods, right? I covered the mirrors in my home and in my bedroom. I did everything to be invisible when in school. I knew answers, whether it was grade school, junior high, college. I never raised my hand. I did everything not to call attention to myself because I was very insecure and just felt as though, first of all, I didn't want anybody to recognize me. But more than that, I felt I wasn't worthy of being recognized.
Wow. And what a tough thing to go through. I mean, it's hard enough when we're growing up as a child to go through all the changes and becoming into adulthood, but then to have this extra added fear of yourself. And as you have learned through life, an unnecessary fear, what was it beyond just this course that made you feel, you know what, it's time that I need to get visible?
Yeah, so I was at a fundraiser in September of 2019, and I was backstage with the founder, and we were chatting, and her organization is international. So I always tease her that I live vicariously through her, whether she's in Japan or England or Fiona. And I said, so Jean, where have you been? And she said, I just spent a couple days in the children's burn unit at Children's Phoenix Hospital. My mouth opened, no words came, and the tears just started pouring from my eyes. And, we know timing is everything. Unfortunately, at that very moment, the MC called me to the podium. So I walked from backstage onto the podium. There were 200 people in the audience. The only one who really at that time thought he even knew the story was my husband. And I stood at the podium for a minute, and I'm wiping the tears, and I apologized to the audience, and I said, I'm so sorry. I was just backstage with Jean. She shared she had been working with children in the burn unit. I wish my family and I had had that kind of support when I was burned as a toddler. Dead silence. Well, after you speak for a while, you know what to do with that silence. I didn't. So I just went on with the program and what my speech was. And there was a woman in the audience, very well known in Tucson, who I did not know. And afterwards, she came up to me and she said, hey, girl, you've got such a story to tell. I want to hear it. And I said, I don't have a story. There's no story. I had never uttered those words out loud, let alone in public. And so she and I went to lunch, dinner, coffee, and had lots of wine. That was September 12th of 2019. By February of 2020, she had my whole story out of me. And she said, you have to write a book. And that was my first foray into sharing my story.
Wow. It's so funny. However, a glass of wine, we let our guard down just a bit.
Yes, just a little. Just a little. Yeah.
Oh, and I just want to take a note. We have a thank you for sharing your visibility with us from the Insight Exchange as a note. So sharing this story is so, so important. And, I think it's so interesting because part of what you do now is burn advocacy, which I think is fire safety. And I find it fascinating. Even sunburns is part of you talk about.
Yes. I mean, there are a million ways we can get burned, right? I say we've all been burned, either physically or emotionally, right? If we go through a divorce or any of those traumatic life experiences, we're burned. And so the physical part, I'm definitely an advocate for preventing burns, whether they're from something hot on the stove or from the oven to sunburn, because especially the elderly and little ones, if you fall on the concrete around your pool, you're going to burn your knees, your legs, your arms. Sunscreen, hugely important. I work with 2 physicians here in Tucson to promote their sunscreen that they created, because the one physician had sunburn to the point where she was severely burned. And so there's so many different ways people can get burned. There are firecrackers and other fireworks on 4th of July, which, by the way, is my most scariest holiday ever. We're getting into fall. People are lighting their fireplaces, their fire pits outside. I can't tell you the number of people that fall into fire pits and get burned, whether they're pushed or they accidentally fall because they trip. It's just, without awareness, these things happen. With awareness, hopefully we can prevent more severe burns like what I experienced.
Wow. And it's so funny because sometimes it's just your everyday life and looking at it differently. It just reminds me of, once upon a time when I had my ballroom studio, one of the little boys had his hand all wrapped up and the mother said he touched the fireplace glass and didn't know he was two years old. And something so simple. And just like you teach children, but it's those little tiny accidents that happen. And just, I think that's fascinating. A skin burn, that little, yes, in the grass, you tumble and you, you get
it's so true. Yeah, we don't think about how hot sidewalks get, right? The news on occasion will have where they will fry an egg on the hot side to prove to you how hot it is. But unless you see something like that, it's in the background. It's not second nature to know those things.
And so being an advocate through your life with this and looking at the rest of your life, how have you been more cautious and careful because of what happened to you with your accident?
Oh, what a great question, Christina. So I will share 2 things. So my father, after my accident, became this, we called him the worry ward. Every time wherever we were, he'd be like, oh, careful, oh, careful, oh, don't do that, oh, careful. And so I grew up with that same kind of, oh, be careful. And so family and friends are like, it's okay, Gail. It's okay, Gail, But you do, when you grow up having such a huge trauma and watching your parents live fearfully for you the rest of their lives, you kind of go inward and you assume worst case scenarios may happen. And so, I'm always the one to say to my husband, you're too close to the fire. Put that match out, or, those things. I don't light matches to this day. I'm still afraid of that kind of fire. My parents never worried about me smoking because they knew I wouldn't light a match. It's just something that's within.
Wow, that actually is a funny little anecdote. Not worrying about
right.
Especially the teenage years.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my poor father. He struggled his whole life.
And what has been the biggest challenge or learning experience that you've gained as you've moved into this new space over the last few years of getting visible?
Another great question. So honestly, my biggest challenge now that I'm being more visible is changing a lifetime of my behaviors, right? So trying not to be the scaredy cat, realizing that I have the power within me to overcome struggles, challenges, knowing that I have a toolbox from which to draw to overcome those challenges. So real quick, years ago when we were looking at moving to Arizona, it was about 27 years ago, I decided I would take a snake phobia course. I was deathly afraid. I was one of these kids, if there was a book or a magazine and there was a picture of a snake, I couldn't touch it, literally. And so I found a guy who was doing his master's thesis on helping people overcome phobias. It was supposed to be a group course that lasted 6 weeks, and you could pay on a sliding fee scale. And when he met me and saw I couldn't hold a book with a snake picture on it, he said, I need to work one-on-one with you. And so literally 3.5 months later, I was not only able to touch a book with a snake, I could pick up his corn snake named Max and wrap him around my arm and put him back in his terrarium. So I learned so much from those experiences. Exposure. When you expose yourself routinely to your challenges, you're able to overcome them. So using that and other things that he taught me, those things are in my toolbox that I use for myself to walk across bridges, to push past those fears of heights and other phobias. And I use them to work with my clients to overcome those as well and to gain self-confidence. Because when we recognize in part that we have overcome those challenges and struggles and how we've done it, it helps us to move to the next challenge and struggle and use those tools to get over them.
And I think that's brilliant. You know, one of the things I thought was so interesting in our conversation the other day was likened to a conversation I had a couple episodes ago about becoming visible to yourself and working through that confidence. Because you told me that you used to cover up your mirrors. That
Yes.
is just, you know, interesting because you were staying invisible to yourself. And yeah, and the confidence that you are now past that. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, so as I said, it didn't happen overnight. Little things at a time helped me build that confidence. I got braces as a 50-year-old. I always talked like this. I never smiled. I never talked without my mouth being covered. I was embarrassed and ashamed. I had buck teeth. I had big spaces in my teeth. And as I was becoming more visible and moving up the corporate ladder, I realized it wasn't helpful to talk like this. First of all, people don't hear you. And second of all, you're covering up one of the most visible parts of you. And so I got braces as a 50-year-old, and I sat in that orthodontist chair along with the 7, 8, 10, 11, 13, and 15-year-olds. And what I learned from them was this smile, these teeth are not something to be embarrassed about, but to look forward to sharing them. And what I started to do once I got my braces off was share my smile. I learned and found how contagious smiles are. You change someone's outlook in someone's day when you share your smile. What happens? They smile back at you. How does that make you feel? It puts you on the top of the world. And so from Dale Carnegie course and getting braces and pursuing my master's degree, I'd gotten an associate's degree right out of high school. I was a secretary. Years later, when I moved to Tucson, I recognized that in order to be visible, in order to get the promotions, I had to be more confident. And it wasn't that I was stupid, although some people thought I was because I never answered questions. I knew if I went back to school and got my bachelor's degree, that would lead to my professional credibility, but my self-credibility. And then years later, just before I got braces, I went back to school and got my master's degree. That is really a point in my life, a turning point, where we worked in teams. There were 5 of us in the team in grad school. And my teammates encouraged me to share my questions, to share my thoughts and answers, which I had never been comfortable doing. And so after getting my master's degree, as I interviewed with prospective employers, I had that self-confidence. And in fact, I have landed almost every job I've ever applied for. And that's because of self-confidence, right? It's not being egotistical. It's having confidence to know I can do this. I'm strong enough. I'm smart enough. I'm only 4'10". So for me, it's I'm tall enough to do all these things, even though that little voice in our head says you are not good enough, strong enough, smart enough. We need to talk back to that voice and say, I can do this because I've done it. I overcame that struggle. I overcame that obstacle. I can do this. It's no different.
I love this, Gail. I mean, just hearing, just what you said, it's in steps. All these things that you've gone through in your life. And then once you break through that next moment, it's like you had another breakthrough, and all these levels you continue to keep going and growing. What is next for Gail? What is next on your visibility?
Well, I think the legacy is really kind of like what you're asking, what I want to leave behind. What I'm learning as I share my story with groups of 3, 30, or 300 is when I share my story, when I am vulnerable, I give other people permission to be vulnerable and share their story. We all have them. We all have stories and secrets. When we share those stories and secrets, we lift the weight off our shoulders, which allows us to be really our self-authentic person. And so when we share, we heal and we help others heal. So for me, that, Christina, is my legacy. And really what's next for me is to keep being visible on bigger scales. I want to share my story. I want to help others learn that they are not alone. To me, that was one of the most crucial pieces of my awareness, was recognizing that I was not alone. I've had trauma, so have you. We all have. And together we can overcome them. Seek help. Tell someone your story, someone you trust, because that person will continue to encourage you to keep sharing. Every time I speak, I share more of my stories, more of the challenges and fears and phobias that I've overcome. And I know by sharing that, other people are feeling that I have a fear of heights, I have a fear of snakes, I have a fear of spiders, whatever it is, I have a fear of being in a relationship. Using all those tools, regardless of what our fear and phobia and struggle is, that's how we get past it.
Yeah. And we had a comment over here on LinkedIn is talk back to that voice, the one that keeps you from doing it, and ongoing exposure to things help us get over our fears. Love this. And that's from Charmin. So thank you, Charmin, for those comments. Yes.
Thank you, Charmin. I appreciate that comment and feedback. Yes, absolutely. I went to a conference years ago before I was being visible. I was in the back of the room. And this woman spoke about not just talking back to that negative Nelly, but to name it. And when you name it, you really give it heart. And you're better able to talk back to it because you're talking to like a person. So take that.
I love it. I love it. And in your visibility, you have some TV appearances that are coming up. You just did your book tour, I guess, as you're going around and sharing what you have going. Tell us more. I mean, you are getting visible.
I am getting visible. I have had book signings locally. I speak to Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs. I speak to corporate luncheons, whether it's women and or women and men together. I'm doing a big speaking gig next week in Phoenix at a monthly luncheon for their employees. I do book clubs. If you have a book club, I'm happy to come in on Zoom. I'm happy to come in person. But it really, like I said, it really is all about sharing my story, because we all have them, and that's how we heal.
Yes. And I love it because it's that speaking it out. One of my favorite examples is when you're flying on a plane. And we don't do it anymore because everybody has their earbuds in. But once upon a time, you would spill your secrets to the stranger in the seat next to you, knowing you were never going to see them again.
Isn't that the truth? But I'll tell you who else we tell our secrets to as women. We tell them to our hairdresser and our manicurist, our stylists. They know things about us no one else does. And so if you are comfortable sharing with those people, it's the first step. It lays the foundation for you to build the confidence to continue to share that story with more and more people. Again, that's how we heal. And then we help other people heal the same way.
Yeah, because we're hearing it. It's not just within us anymore, but we're hearing the words coming out of our own mouth.
Yes.
This is so amazing and so beautiful. And I am so thankful to have you today and to get to know you and what your journey has been. It's just a little side note. Gail and I know the same person who is also going to be a keynote speaker at the Women Getting Visible conference. And that was just a wonderful thing.
It's such a small world. It is a very small world. I'll tell you a quick story. So I was back east where I grew up doing a book signing. There was a woman in my audience. She came up to me and said, so I was listening to a podcast you were on. You know my cousin in Tucson, Arizona. I want you to be a keynote speaker. She's a labor attorney at our annual labor conference next year. Small world, right? Like, what do they say? 2 degrees of separation or less? Yeah, it's crazy. So we both know Jack. I'm so excited to be sharing the stage with her and you and the other amazing women that you have collected for this conference next month. I'm very excited.
Oh, I am too. I can't spend some time with you in person, IRL, in real life. And Gail is going to be Sunday evening keynote ability, the Back to Me Day, and about. You have your book available so you can push that cover for everyone to see. Oh, fantastic. Visible, Overcoming Trauma-Based Fear. How can someone get a hold of that book, Gail?
Yeah, so the best way, obviously, is through my website, but also through the publisher. And it's also on Amazon. So www.booklooker.com/13819. And my website is first spelled out, impressions, plural, 1.com.
So first impressions, 1.com. That's how we're going to find Gail and support her and read about this book of becoming visible and showing up at the Women Getting Visible conference, because visibility starts by showing up.
It does.
We will see you soon. Thank you so much for your time and your stories.
Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guest. I appreciate you. Bye. Have a great day.
Who will be up next in the Golden Chair? Join us next week. I am your host, Christina Vidovich of Women Getting Visible. Let me personally invite you to the Women Getting Visible show and conference October 10th through 12th in Washington, D.C. We'll kick off Friday night with our VIP reception. Saturday, we'll have powerful keynote speakers, incredible workshops, and networking opportunities. After the Back to Me session, you'll walk away with confidence on Sunday. Join us and get your visibility journey energized.